G'day, it's Jamie and welcome to Tantanoola Tigers. Today I'm reading an old newspaper report about a man who actually saw the Tantanoola Tiger, and this is his eyewitness account, so we'll get into it. This was published in Adelaide's Chronicle on Thursday the 26th of May 1932, titled Man Who Saw the Tiger, New Light on 37 Years Old Mystery. Former Tutor's Convincing Story by Veritas. Did the Tantanoola Tiger ever exist outside the imagination of nerve-shocked settlers? Here is the story of a man who saw it, honest, outright and convincing. He occupies a high and honourable position and his veracity is above reproach. In 1899, I was acting as a tutor on a station near the shores of Lake Eliza, between Robe and Penola. The ranges in that part are wild in the extreme, ideal for bush ranging. The country is of limestone formation, with numerous surface caves and subterranean caverns, many of the latter of vast extent. There are some places where the sound of a horse's hoofs and the rumble of a buggy wheel reverberate beneath one like distant thunder, till they die away in the hollow distances beneath. There is an authentic story of a fox terrier dog entering a surface cave and losing its way, remaining underground for several days, and finally emerging at the surface over a mile away in a weak and famished condition. While thus lost, its feeble barking could be heard at intervals from many points wide apart, showing the extent and ramifications of these underground passages. Creatures of the night. My two pupils, being delicate, lessons were restricted to a couple of hours in the morning. The afternoons and evenings were my own to do as I liked with. Being myself young and an enthusiastic shot, I roamed the country daily with gun or rifle, and explored the surrounding lakes and hills thoroughly. On more than one occasion, I amused myself by watching the entrance to a natural cave or tunnel, which ran into the hillside, securely hidden behind a rock, keeping absolute silence as the sun sank and the shades of night crept on. One would see rabbits, wombats, porcupines and foxes emerge at intervals from the same exit and go off about their various business. One more proof of the many diverging branches of these curious and fascinating limestone formations. I had been in the district about 6 or 8 months when the disconcerting rumours began to circulate, at first vague and at long intervals, later oftener and with more detail, to the effect that some large animal was abroad and had been seen by various people, chiefly belated travellers returning from country shows, sales and such like gathering points. Reign of Terror. The first people who were reputed to have seen the creature gave very scanty descriptions of its appearance, and even these did not always agree. At length, as more appearances were reported, these vague and conflicting descriptions crystallised through various stages to a wolf, a bear and lastly a tiger. The hardy dweller in the Australian bush is not unusually afflicted with nerves, and the rumoured tiger did not at first cause any real apprehension. It was naturally the subject of many an argument around the fireside or on the track, but was invariably dismissed in the end as being either a hoax or else an hallucination caused by drink. The tiger seen through the whiskey bottle became in time a standing joke. Suddenly, however, to our bewilderment, our sober, unimaginative neighbours, who lived a few miles away, declared that they too had seen the tiger. Their perturbation was too obviously genuine to allow of doubt. Indeed, so thoroughly scared were they left the job of fencing they were engaged in near the spot where they had seen the animal, and nothing would induce them to go near the place for some time. Then commenced a reign of terror in the neighbourhood. Children were forbidden to wander out of sight of their homes, and no one ventured out after dark. On first taking up my duties at the station, I was allotted to my employers a comfortable room in their house. Later, however, owing to the habit I had then indulged in of smoking in bed and keeping late hours, I was offered and accepted quarters in an old wooden building called by the family the Whirly. The shed was the original home of the settlers before their present commodious stone house was built, and stood at the entrance to a gully leading back into the ranges, about a quarter of a mile from the new house. The Whirly was divided into 2 rooms by a thin matchboard partition about 6 feet high, and the part I slept in was sealed with bags sewn together. The small door and window gave light and ingress to this part. The other part was empty, save for some old small bags in the corner and a few old gardening tools. It had rickety double doors, which did not fit closely to the ground. In fact, at one place where the earth floor was worn away, there was a space of about 18 inches, or rather more, under the door. Once installed in these quarters, it mattered not to anyone what hours I returned from duck shooting, and I was free to smoke all night if I so desired. Keep your dog at home. Belonging to the owner of the station was a handsome collie dog named Mac. Mac was a great favourite with everyone, and was so gentle and intelligent that he was given the run of the place, never being chained up at night as the other dogs were. He had a great aversion to be out in the rain, and many a night when it came on wet, Mac would creep into the vacant half of the Whirly and throw himself down on the potato sacks in the corner. The rattling of the rickety double doors as the old dog squeezed under would wake me. At a word from me, he would thump the floor with his tail and settle down to sleep. About this time, a German neighbour of ours had some of his sheep destroyed by dogs, and made a considerable noise about it. One morning, Mac appeared with a note attached to his collar. Keep your dog at home or he'll be shot. We were all much astonished that Mac should have thus gone away at night, but inasmuch as the gentlest and most behaved dogs have been known to kill sheep when in bad company by night, we took the hint. Henceforth, our pet was securely chained up in a sheltered corner behind the calf pens. His owner personally saw to this the last thing at night. One evening at bedtime, as it was dark and rainy, and the ground around the cow yards was very slushy, I offered to chain up Mac on my way to bed in the Whirly, and thus save the owner the bother of putting on his heavy boots and overcoat. This job duly accomplished, I went to bed to sleep. Seized the tiger. An hour or two later, I was wakened by the violent rattling of the double doors leading into the farther position of the shed. The rain had ceased, and the night was still very clear. My first waking thought was that Mac was forcing his way in, as was his custom on wet nights. Next, I was struck by the rattling being so much louder and more prolonged than usual, as if the animal had been too large to get in the opening easily. Nor did he, when once in the shed, go straight to his corner on the bags, but paced stealthily around and around the room. On full consciousness returning, I remembered having chained up the dog on my way to bed. Still, I suspected nothing, but concluded that he had slipped his head out of the collar and got loose. The recollection of the threatening letter received a few days previously flashed into my mind, and being warmly attached to the dog, I jumped out of bed and, going outside, opened the doors leading into the part of the shed he was in and called him, intending to chain him up again more securely. To my amazement, instead of the collie coming to me with a wagging tail, a great, long, low-hung beast flashed past me, almost brushing against my legs, bounded up the gully in the starlight, and disappeared in the darkness of the range. Utterly astonished at the incomprehensible behaviour of what I thought to be my favourite, I went to the calf pens, where I found Mac asleep and on his chain. Returning in the days in my bed in the Whirly, I, for the first time, became conscious of a strong, unpleasant odour. It was not until after racking my brains for some time that I finally recalled where I had smelled that peculiar smell before. the cages of the carnivora at the zoo. For the remainder of my stay in these parts, a matter of several months, I slept with a loaded rifle by my bedside, but nothing more did I see or hear of my nocturnal visitor. A year or so after leaving the southeast, I read in the press that a huge beast, supposed by some to have been a wolf, and by others to have been a cross between a wolf and a large dog, had been shot. Whether or not this was the strange creature that paid me a visit, I cannot say, although, to the best of my belief, and bear in mind I only had a fleeting glimpse of it, the animal I saw had much more the shape and gait of a leopard than a dog or a wolf. No more appearances of the tiger being reported, gradually interest died away. And when later a sheep stealer's lair was discovered and many people inclined to the belief that the tiger story was purposely set afoot by thieves as a blind to hide their villainous dealings, still, when anyone scoffs too loudly, the picture comes back to me of myself standing at the open door of the whirly, staring at a great long sinuous form, disappearing with panther-like bounds into the wild and rugged ranges beyond one starlight night long ago. The end. Wow, that is super interesting, this. So this guy had a real close encounter with the Tantanoola tiger, and he said that, like, the wolf that was shot, it didn't seem to look like that, what he got a glimpse of, but he said it was more the shape and the gait of a leopard, and it had a great long sinuous form, and it disappeared with panther-like bounds into the wild. So I'd love to know whether he saw like a big cat of some descript, or a Thylacine or a Thylacoleo. But really interesting stuff. Okay, that's it for me. I'll get back to you all next time. Bye.